You stood next to Biggie, you put hot on him. That's stand next to the fight if you want, right? You stood next to Mace, you stood next to Jock. Look, Puffy might be the destination for anybody going nowhere.
He's not wrong. Y'all
Nobody survived him.
And I went and got one of my gunmen. My man, I'm not gonna mention his name either. He came with me up there, okay? And they saw him, and they fell back, because they was gonna do something to me. But if it comes to getting ugly where somebody's gonna be trying to me, I'm gonna have to do something first or do something to prevent that from happening.
That was Craig Mack on how Diddy allegedly cheated him out of his cash, and boy, it was extremely heartbreaking. From the look of things, Diddy's world is about to crash, and there's no saving it. First, about 8 alleged victims sued him, accusing him of various crimes from ST to HT and trading in. Then, the feds stormed his houses in LA and Miami, leaving with loads of electronic gadgets, including cameras, purported to contain pieces of evidence. Then, a 2016 video of him hitting and manhandling Cassie Ventura makes it to the internet, and then this? Many fans can already see Diddy in orange jumpsuits and effing with the likes of Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, and R. Kelly. In the past few months, several memes have been flying around on the internet depicting the "I'll be missing you" star spending the rest of his life in jail. And to add salt to injury, 50 Cent has given a bone-chilling testimony of how and why one of hip-hop's greatest pioneers, Craig Mack, passed away. Now, if 50's testimony is true, then girl, Diddy's lawyers got a tall mountain to climb, as the music mogul appears to have outdone himself this time. So, what did 50 Cent say about Craig Mack? And how would his story affect Diddy's current woes? I've got all the juice right here.
You stood next to Biggie, you put hot on him. That's stand next to the fight if you want, right? You stood next to Mace, stood next to Jock. Look, Puffy might be the destination for anybody going nowhere.
He's not wrong. Y'all
Nobody survived him.
So grab a chair and some popcorn and let's begin. 50 Cent has purportedly told a grim tale of what happened between Diddy and Craig Mack, which has sent shockwaves down the spine of some fans. The rapper, who is frenemies with the music mogul, narrated why Craig Mack wanted to end Diddy and how the whole incident went down, and the story has gotten some fans emotional. Apparently, it wasn't Craig Mack's intention and desire to want to take another life, but circumstances pushed him to the brink of crime. Narrating how it happened, 50 allegedly claimed that Craig Mack pulled up to where he was supposed to meet with Diddy and brought some tools with him. He wanted to eliminate the Bad Boy Records founder for what he did to him during his tenure with the label. So he sat in his car and waited for the dude to show up. But then something happened that changed the course of his action. On why he wanted to snuff the life out of Diddy, 50 claimed that the music mogul had cheated Mack out of his money, leaving him dry. Craig Mack was technically the first artist to be signed by Bad Boy Entertainment when it was formed in 1993. In fact, I can confidently say that Craig, along with Biggie Smalls, formed the foundation for what Bad Boy is today. Without these two, there probably would have been no Bad Boy Records, as their blood, sweat, and tears gave the label its footing today. Consider this. According to Clive Davis, Diddy played him Craig Mack's hit single Flavor in Your Ear and a couple of tracks from Biggie Smalls to convince him to bankroll Bad Boy. He didn't remember the title of the tracks from Biggie Smalls, but he did remember Craig Mack's song, which he thought was enough to convince him. He narrated how it all happened on an episode of the Rock and Roll High School podcast with Pete Ganbarg. Puffy was 23 years old, but sensing the hip-hop revolution, both L.A. Reid and I agreed that we could use someone really attuned to the street. You gotta know what you can do for yourself, and you gotta know when you need to look to other people. He continued, "When I met with Puffy, he articulated that hip-hop should be part of the top 40 mainstream, and that the business would change in the future. And I said, what have you got to illustrate that point? And he played me Craig Mack's Flava in Your Ear. And he played me the then unknown artist that he felt and believed so strongly. He played me 4 or 5 cuts from Notorious Big. Now, from about 6 tracks that were played to Clive Davis on that day, he only remembered the title track of Craig Mack, which suggests that Mack's music was the one that did the magic. Remember, this episode of the podcast was recorded in 2022, about 19 years after his encounter with Diddy, where he heard Mack's song. No disrespect to Biggie Smalls and his achievements in hip-hop, but Mack's song made the most impact on Clive Davis. Thus, for someone whose track formed the foundation for Bad Boy, one would expect that he would be treated like a king by the label. Sadly, the opposite was the reality. In his last video before his demise, Craig Mack claimed that he was once approached by somebody to do another album. So he agreed to do the job and gave the person a price that he thought was low, and the said person agreed. Even with the low price that Mack gave, the person decided to pay him in bits. Both Mack and the said person agreed that the first bit of the money would be paid before the recording began, and then the second part would be paid during the recording. The last tranche of money would come when the final recording was done. Mack wanted to do the album so badly, so he didn't take the first tranche before entering the studio. Sadly, the money didn't come, so he stopped recording because he didn't want to be the guy who worked hard but didn't get anything from it. Then the person and his goons came to him and told him he owed them an album. Mack then reminded them that they owed him some money because the agreement stated he would get the first tranche before hitting the studio and the next during the recording of the song. And as they spoke, neither the first nor the second tranche had been paid. The next thing he knew, the person started issuing threats, claiming that he had men who would teach Mack a lesson. Mack then told him that he should meet with him at the studios to iron out their differences and possibly jump on the album. The following day, the Flavor in Your Ear rapper showed up at the studio with his own muscle and gunmen. According to Mack, immediately after the person and his goons saw him and his gun, they fell back. He claimed that it appeared the person and his muscles had laid an ambush in the studios to harm him immediately after he got there. However, the presence of his muscle and the gunman scared the hell out of them. So Mack made it clear to them that no cash, no records. He wasn't going to do all the hard work for somebody to profit off of his sweat. He insisted on getting paid his due, or he won't be hitting the studios anytime soon. Moreover, the person appeared to be dishonest by trying to cheat him out of his money, so he didn't want to continue with the album anymore. The person and his thugs left the studios and started issuing threats against Mack. He even recalled several instances when the person sent people after him for standing up for his rights. It got so severe that Mack decided to end it all by eliminating the said individual from the scene. So he got himself a gun and then got his sister's car to go put a few bullets through that dude. However, he had to go pick up his sister from work before heading to where his nemesis and his thugs were hanging out. While he was waiting in the car, a gospel song came up, which changed his mind about what he wanted to do. He asked God to help him because he really wanted to put an end to that dude that had made his life miserable. However, his heart was touched and he gave up on his mission. Mack was never heard of again until he resurfaced several years later, looking very dark and unhealthy. It turned out he was suffering from heart problems that caused shortness of breath. The rapper passed away a few months later at the age of 47 after saying goodbye to his friends and relatives. Mack's demise spawned many theories due to how his label mates and Diddy treated him during his time with them. Now, Mack intentionally left out the name of the person who was trying to get him, but all fingers are pointing at Diddy, and here's why. Diddy signed Craig to Bad Boy Records in 1994, as I've already mentioned, and later added Notorious Big to the roster. These three men came up with an unforgettable marketing campaign that brought Bad Boy into the limelight. They packaged and distributed promo music from Mack and Biggie, packaged like a McDonald's Big Mac, but would call it the Big Mac to play off the last names of the MC's monikers. The results surprised everyone, as they weren't expecting the new record label to make the giant waves it generated in the industry. Craig Mack's singles F Day World and Get Down from the album went certified gold, while Flavor in Ya Ear went platinum. Biggie's album was certified 6 times platinum, with the single Juicy going gold, while Big Papa and One More Chance went platinum. Craig Mack didn't only make a mark on Bad Boy Records, he created a legacy in the hip-hop world. Later, Craig Mack and Biggie Small collaborated on 2 more joints, the now famous remix of Flavor in Ya Ear and Let Me Down, from Biggie's album Born Again. These 2 MCs ruled the Bad Boy and were superstars in their own rights with their dedicated followings. Both were hailed as rap heavyweights and touted as pioneers of the genre. Unfortunately, these accolades got to their head and started a rivalry, which didn't augur well for both artists. Their situation was the classic example of 2 captains can't steer the same ship, unless one gave way to the other. Unfortunately for Mack, Diddy appeared to throw his weight behind Biggie Smalls. Explaining Craig's beef with Biggie, the former bodyguard of Diddy, Gene Deal, claimed that Craig Mack was bigger than Biggie at the time, and that it was Biggie's verse on Flavor in Ya Ear remix that put him on. Another reason was that Biggie didn't like collaborating with rappers outside Brooklyn. Mack was from the Bronx, so it didn't help their relationship. Explaining why Diddy abandoned Mack and decided to roll with Biggie, Gene Deal said that Diddy asked Mack to change his manager, but he refused. Apparently, Mack had been with his management for a long time, and he felt that changing him would be a sign of betrayal. This led to several heated arguments in the studios, and then finally Diddy pulled the rug from under Mack. Now, in his interview with The Art of Dialogue, Gene Deal made a startling statement that could help identify the mysterious person who sent several threats to Mack. According to Gene, Mack fell out with Diddy because he wanted some money from the music mogul. Now, this statement perfectly syncs with Mack's earlier claims that the mysterious individual was after his life because he had the balls to demand money that was due him.
Because Craig wanted his money for his music. So Puff said, yo, I ain't with that kid no more. Not at all.
Now, it appears that Diddy wanted to cheat Craig out of his money, which is why he wanted the MC to cut ties with his management. However, Craig had been with his management for a long time, so he trusted him. He knew that his manager would look out for his interest when it came to contract negotiations, so he didn't want to fire him. Thus, Diddy pulled the plug on Craig Mack's deal with Bad Boy Records. To make matters worse, news started making rounds that Mack was going to sign for Diddy's rival, Suge Knight's label D-Row. That was during the height of the tension between Diddy's Bad Boy Records and Suge Knight's D-Row, and could have contributed to Tupac's demise. According to Gene Deal, Craig Mack was billed to perform at Club 662 in Las Vegas the night that Tupac was shot. Before he passed, Mack reportedly told his friends and partners to sell nothing of his to Diddy and his crew. Diddy's former bodyguard also revealed that Diddy was doing to Biggie what he did to Mack. He robbed the big rapper both through publishing rights and market sales. Biggie also learned the game and started robbing Diddy by assigning publishing rights and other emoluments to other people. This way, Diddy didn't get the money that was due him, and so did Biggie. Now, this little insight gives fans a glimpse of what Diddy did to Craig Mack, which was the reason why Craig didn't trust and preferred to stick with his manager. So, you see why all fingers are pointing to Puffy for Craig Mack's demise? Curiously, Diddy did the same to Mace, which led to their public falling out on the radio. It was revealed that Puffy had signed and owned all the publishing rights to Mace's songs, even though the rapper was no longer on the label. This heavily restricted Mace's movements and, most importantly, his income, because a huge chunk of the proceeds from the song went to Puff. When the Can't Hold Me Down rapper had had enough of the treatment, he stormed Diddy's interview on V103 with Ryan Cameron and demanded that Diddy sign some documents to get back his publishing. Diddy allegedly signed the documents, allowing Mace to perform as a featured artist on other rappers' songs. It was later revealed, however, that Bad Boy Records had kept the publishing rights to all of Mace's music, retaining control over the rapper's career on the mic. Diddy's apparent dishonesty led to a social media banter between the two artists. Mace was the most outspoken of the two, claiming that he proposed to pay $2 million for his publishing rights. But Puff Daddy didn't want to sell for obvious reasons. This forced Mace to record a diss track aimed at Diddy. The track, titled Oracle 2, The Liberation of Mace and Betha, contained the following edited lyrics. Yeah, I'm just a Harlem guy down a Vegas strip with my own Suge Knight. You from Mount Vernon, man? Go and your own hood. You ain't no architect, you just a man who know how to market D. Diddy reacted to the track by branding Mace a fake pastor. He also asserted that Mace still owed the label a $3 million album advance for a project that he never delivered. Does this sound familiar? You bet it does. That's exactly the same story Craig Mack narrated in his last interview before his demise. Fortunately for Mace, he lived long to tell the tale of his experience with the founder and CEO of Bad Boy Records. Diddy also claimed that he and Mace had settled their differences and now were brothers. Last year in September, Diddy said in response to a query about whether the two had reconciled, "You know, we're brothers and brothers fight. I love him, and that's it." However, fans are taking that statement with a pinch of salt because they've heard it before. Hopefully this time it isn't some PR stunt the music mogul is pulling, but it's genuinely from his heart. However, that still doesn't exonerate Diddy from Craig Mack's demise, especially given the circumstances under which he passed. Some fans suspect Diddy still had a hand in the rapper's demise, though he didn't shoot him directly. Jaguar Wright once claimed that Diddy eliminated almost all of his former colleagues at Uptown Records by inducing heart attacks in them. She explained that Andre Harrell, the then president of the record label, passed away from a heart attack. The same happened to Al B. Sure, but he was lucky to have escaped the icy cold hands of death. Kim Porter allegedly passed away through heart-related issues, but it was later attributed to a lung infection. Thus, many fans suspect that he employed the same modus operandi to end the life of Craig Mack. For example, in Porter's Porter's case, the coroner initially ruled that the former Uptown Records secretary had passed away due to heavy metal poisoning. Not long after, the coroner passed on and was replaced by another coroner, who ruled that Kim's passing was from lobar pneumonia. Many fans found the story too convenient and concluded that Porter was assassinated. Fortunately, some of her friends claimed that she was so healthy and hearty in the week that she passed that they didn't suspect she wasn't feeling well. Some even said they saw her going to the gym on the day that she left this world, and thus felt that something sinister was at play. A few days after her passing, it came to light that Porter was purportedly writing a tell-all book that detailed her experience as a music industry veteran. The book allegedly contained several accounts of maltreatment at the hands of Diddy. Therefore, he feared massive backlash and a further dent in his brand if the book were to come out. The music mogul allegedly approached Porter, instructing her to shelve the idea of writing that book, but the mother of twins wouldn't budge. He allegedly pleaded with her not to let the world in on his secret life, but Porter felt his fans had to know. Thus, he had no choice but to eliminate Porter to save himself and the people that the writer was going to expose. Now, here's the juicy part. Recently, photographs of Corey Gamble at Porter's house on the day that she passed on began circulating on the internet. Dressed in all black and wearing a black cap, Corey looked as if he was trying to avoid the cameras. Many fans began suspecting foul play because Corey was neither a boyfriend nor a family member. Even Diddy, the father of Porter's kids, was nowhere near the home when his ex-girlfriend passed away. Many fans only know Corey Gamble as the boyfriend of Kris Jenner, and that's all. So they questioned his presence at Porter's house, especially when the coroners were going about their duties. Some fans speculated that Diddy didn't have the balls to poison Kim Porter himself, so he had Corey do it for him. According to that theory, Corey was the perfect man to carry out the dastardly act without it tracing back to Diddy, because he was once close to Porter. Days before Porter's demise, Diddy made sure he stayed away from the house to avoid arousing suspicions when the deed occurred. So fans were convinced Corey poisoned Porter and had the initial coroner who discovered the plot assassinated, then hired a new coroner to go with the report that they approved. Thus, it is possible Diddy used the same modus operandi to eliminate Craig Mack so he could access his publishing and marketing proceeds. They suspect that the reason Craig Mack couldn't carry out his intentions that fateful day was because Diddy probably heard of the plot and never showed up. And to avoid raising eyebrows, he waited out a few more months, probably years, before finally eliminating the one that laid the foundation for the success of his label. Now, all these might seem far-fetched and improbable, but if you know a little bit about the dark side of the industry, you'll understand how all these events piece together to form a perfect picture. Let's take the case of the girl group TLC as a case study to give you a fair idea of what Diddy did to Craig Mack and most of the artists under his label. A few years ago, a member of the group, Tiani T-Boz Watkins, narrated how broke they were even though their album had sold millions of copies. According to her, they didn't know where all the money went, so they held their label president, Clive Davis, hostage with a to his head for answers. The said album, Crazy Cool, reportedly sold about 7 million copies, but the girls were only given a paltry $50,000 each. Narrating the whole incident to Monique Hicks on her eponymous show, this is what T-Boz had to say. "We held the record company, including founder and president Clive Davis, hostage with bullets because TLC had generated on Crazy Cool $75 million and they gave us $50,000 apiece, and I was like, what the hell?" So of course Lisa Left Eye Lopes was the ringleader. We had a limo driver and he was the getaway car. And they would have gotten away with it too, if it wasn't for that pesky P. Diddy. We got up there and held everybody hostage, and Puffy was the one that snitched us out. He caught us because we kicked him out of the meeting. We interrupted Puffy's meeting. We were like, sorry, we really gotta handle this. We were getting sick and sweating, really working hard for this money, and wanted to know who the hell had our check. L.A. Reid, who was then Arista's CEO, said Clive did. So that's where we went. The matter was resolved, and they had some money from Clive Davis and his crew, but the wily old man found a way of recouping all that money. Fortunately for the girls, Davis didn't press charges, and that was how they avoided jail time. They did give us some money, but they still took it back and recouped it. You live and learn in the business. It worked out well. We didn't go to jail, thank God. Now, I bet you missed a small detail in T-Boz's story that connects perfectly to Craig Mack's issue with Bad Boy Records. According to T-Boz, their plans were foiled when they saw them and snitched to Clive Davis. For those who don't know, Clive is Diddy's mentor who taught him how to successfully run a record label. As we said at the beginning of this video, he bankrolled Bad Boy Records from scratch and kept pumping money even when it was struggling in the beginning. So it is possible Clive Davis mentored Diddy on how to cheat artists of their money, because my checks reveal that TLC's album Crazy F***y Cool sold 7 million copies. You don't need a math professor to tell you that paying 3 artists $50,000 apiece for copies sold is daylight. Assuming T-Boz's story is true. Now, the reason Clive Davis might not have pressed charges was because he probably didn't want the whole incident to blow up in his face when it leaked into the press. So, tying all these together, fans conclude that Craig Mack's story of someone allegedly trying to cheat him out of his hard work could be true. Now, 50 Cent, who also used to run a record label, knows the inner workings of the business and thus seems convinced that Diddy is the one behind everything. He seems to suggest that Craig Mack couldn't get to the music mogul because he didn't show up that day. Rather, the mogul probably played a long game that ensured Craig's passing wouldn't circle back to him. And from the look of things, it appears that he might get away with it. However, who knows? Maybe, with time, every hidden crime will come to light for all to see, just like how Cassie and other victims have found their voices and exposed Diddy. For now, we wait patiently to see what the future holds for Diddy and his cohorts. That will be all for today. Thanks for watching. See you in the next episode.